The human with a strange pendant, the alien city of Virulin, was quiet. But not peaceful. Its skies were gray, its towers broken, and its people walked with tired eyes. A war had ended years ago. But the wounds still showed on every wall, every face. Through the ruins walked a tall human man. His coat was dusty, his boots heavy, and on his chest hung a strange glowing pendant. It was small, oval-shaped, and shimmered with soft blue light. The moment the guards at the palace gate saw it, they froze. "Where did you get that?" One of them asked, stepping forward with wide eyes. "I need to speak with the queen." The human said calmly, "My name is Captain Rourke, and I think I found something she lost." The guards didn't believe him at first. Many liars had come before, claiming they knew what happened to the queen's lost daughter, but none of them had that pendant. The guard captain made a call, whispered something urgent. Soon after, 2 more guards arrived and took Rourke inside the palace. The halls were still grand, but covered in silence. No music, no laughter, only memories. They brought him to a chamber where the queen once held council. Now she sat alone on a high seat, draped in deep blue robes. Her silver crown dim in the low light. She looked tired, older than her age. With sadness resting heavy in her eyes, Rourke bowed respectfully, then slowly pulled the pendant from under his shirt. The queen's eyes locked on it, and her lips parted. Her hand rose slowly, shaking. "That," she whispered, standing, "that belonged to my child." "I know," Rourke said softly. "I found her." Gasps echoed around the chamber. The advisors didn't believe him. The guards stepped forward, unsure, but the queen held up her hand, her voice strong again. "Let him speak." Rourke took a breath and began. "Years ago, I was on a mission near the Saran wastes. My team crashed during a storm, and I was the only survivor while searching for help. I found a hidden pod deep under the sands. Inside was a small alien girl, barely breathing, alone." He paused, letting the weight of those words fill the room. She had this pendant in her hand, and no memory of her name or past. I took her with me, raised her as my own, named her Lena. The queen's lips trembled at the name. "My daughter's name was also Lena," she whispered. "She's alive," Rourke continued. "She's grown now. Kind, smart, and brave. I never knew where she came from, but I kept this pendant safe when Lena turned 18. It began to glow. That's when I knew I had to bring her back here." One of the queen's advisors stepped forward, frowning. This could be a trick. "Your Grace," he said, "we've seen fakes before," but the queen shook her head slowly. "No fake would make it glow," she said, her voice soft but firm. "Bring the girl. She's waiting outside the city," Rourke replied. She was afraid. Unsure if she'd be welcome, the queen turned away. Walking slowly to a tall window that looked over the ruined city, "I lost her during the siege," she said quietly. "She was only a baby when the rebels attacked. They said she died in the fire. But I never believed it." A long silence followed. Then she turned back and looked Rourke in the eyes. "If you truly brought her back to me," she said, "then you have done more than any general or hero. You have brought light into this cold world again." The guards were sent to fetch Lena, and preparations began for a quiet test, a scan of her DNA, a confirmation through the royal database. But something in the queen had already changed. For the first time in years, she smiled. Outside the palace, Lena sat in the hover car, watching people walk past with curious glances. She clutched a small pouch around her neck, the pendant's case, now empty. She didn't know what to expect, but her heart was beating fast, and something inside whispered, "You're home." The wind moved gently through the broken towers. The city, once full of pain, began to hum with a quiet hope. Because after all these years, something long lost was returning, and the queen was ready to believe again. Asterisk the Queen's frozen tears. The Queen stood alone in the royal chamber. Staring at the pendant in her hand, she had not touched it in years. Not since the fire took everything from her. Now it was here again, warm, glowing, real. She could feel the weight of 1,000 memories returning. The way her baby had smiled, the soft cries in the night, the last time she held her. And then, the fire, the screams, the silence. Captain Rourke stood still across the room, not daring to speak. He had seen war, lost friends, faced death, but this moment felt heavier than any of that. He had brought the girl this far. But now, it was not his story anymore. The Queen slowly walked to her seat, sat down gently, and closed her eyes. "She was my heart," she whispered. "They said there was nothing left in the ruins." An advisor stepped forward. "Cautious, Your Majesty. We still need proof," he said. "Even if the pendant is real. The girl may not be. She is." The Queen said without opening her eyes, "I felt it." Moments later, the grand doors opened, and Lena stepped inside, her eyes wide, her hands shaking slightly. She had never seen a palace before, never walked on floors that glowed under her feet. But it wasn't the gold or the lights that stunned her. It was the woman sitting on the throne, looking at her with eyes that were both strong and gentle. Lena took a slow step forward, then another. The Queen rose, her breath caught in her throat. Their eyes met, and for a second, the room seemed to vanish. Everything else fell away: the advisors, the guards, the past, you. The Queen said softly. Lena nodded, unsure what to say. I don't know if I'm really her," Lena whispered, "but I've dreamed of your voice." Tears welled in the Queen's eyes, but she didn't let them fall. Not yet. Not until she knew. A medical AI floated down from above, gentle and round. It scanned Lena's face, eyes, hair, then moved to take a blood sample. Lena winced, but didn't step back. Everyone waited in silence. The Queen held the pendant tightly in her hand. Rourke stood behind Lena, ready if she needed him. The AI beeped softly, processing, comparing records from years ago. Then it spoke, its voice calm and clear. "Partial match confirmed," it said. "Subject shares 47% genetic markers with royal database." A wave of confusion swept through the room. Only 47%. One of the nobles stepped forward, raising an eyebrow. "That's not enough," he said. "She may have royal blood, but she could be a distant cousin, not the lost child." Lena's shoulders dropped. She felt small again, like when she was a scared little girl hiding from shadows in her dreams. But the Queen did not look away. She stepped down from the throne, slowly walking toward Lena. When she reached her, she placed a hand on the girl's cheek. "My daughter had a scar on her arm," the Queen said. From a glass shard before the attack, Lena looked down, then pulled back her sleeve. There it was. A faint white mark near her elbow. The Queen gasped, and her knees gave out, but Rourke caught her just in time. She looked up at Lena, eyes full of tears now. "I never stopped waiting," she whispered. "Even when they told me to forget." Lena knelt beside her, tears rolling down her cheeks too. "I always felt like something was missing," she said, "like I was never whole." The two hugged, tight, shaking. The Queen let her tears fall for the first time in 20 years. Frozen tears that had waited too long, but not everyone in the chamber looked happy. Some advisors whispered to each other, eyes narrow. One of them quietly left the room with a message to send. Rourke noticed, but said nothing yet. Something about this reunion didn't sit right with certain people, and he had seen enough politics in his life to know danger when it stirred. After a while, the Queen stood, her hand still holding Lena's. "We will do more tests," she announced. "And then the trials." "The trials?" Rourke asked, confused. "Ancient laws," the Queen explained. "Only the true heir can pass them. They test more than blood. They test spirit, memory, soul. Lena's heart raced. She wasn't sure what she would face, but she nodded. Anyway, I'll do it, she said. That night, the city of Virulin didn't sleep. News of the girls spread fast, and many believed hope had returned. But in the darkness, far from the palace, a hidden message was sent to an enemy faction. She may be back, the message said, but we're not done yet. Asterisk, the secret inside the pendant. Captain Rourke sat alone in his guest chamber. The pendant resting in his palm, it still glowed faintly, just like the day he first found Lena in the escape pod, but tonight, the glow felt different, like it was trying to speak. He had always known it was more than jewelry, the way it never lost power, the way it pulsed when Lena was upset. But now, here in the palace where it belonged, it seemed to wake up. Rourke placed it on the table and turned on his field scanner. A blue grid spread across the pendant, checking its shape, surface, and energy signatures. Then something happened, Dan. Encrypted signal blinked inside the pendant, hidden deep within, locked for decades. What are you hiding? Rourke whispered, tapping the interface. The scanner beeped and displayed a code. Ancient and complex. He copied it and brought it to the palace AI chamber, hoping someone could help unlock it. To his surprise, the queen herself was already there. She stood beside the master AI core, speaking softly. When she saw Rourke enter, she turned, her eyes sharp but tired. You feel it too, she said, nodding at the pendant in his hand. Yes, Rourke replied. There's something inside it. The queen raised a brow. I gave that pendant to my daughter the day she was born. She said, it contains a message one only she can unlock. Rourke placed it on the platform, and the master AI began decoding. It took seconds, and then a soft chime echoed through the chamber. A hologram flickered above the platform and image of the queen, younger, smiling. She held a baby in her arms, rocking gently. This is a message for my daughter, Lena, the hologram said. If you are seeing this, then fate has brought you back. The queen watched in silence, her eyes filled with tears again. The hologram continued, showing images of the royal nursery, the baby's laugh, the royal crest, and then coordinates. Dates, security codes, memories. I hid you away when the attack came. The hologram voice said, a loyal guardian took you. Swore to keep you safe until it was time. You may not remember me, but I never stopped waiting for you. Rourke stared at the hologram, stunned. This wasn't just proof, was love, hope, and truth sealed in crystal for over a decade. The queen stepped forward and touched the light image of her younger self. My husband never knew I activated the message, she whispered. I was afraid. Afraid she might never see it, but someone else had seen it. Lena, who entered the chamber quietly, drawn by the light. She stood between the queen and Rourke, her eyes fixed on the glowing baby and the hologram. That's me, she whispered. I remembered that blanket. The memory hit her hard. Sudden and sharp warm arms, a lullaby, a gold mobile spinning above her crib. Tears ran down her face as the feelings returned, things she thought were only dreams. Why did I forget? Lena asked softly, why couldn't I remember all this before? The queen gently placed a hand on her shoulder. Trauma, she said. Your mind hid the pain to protect you. The AI completed the scan and confirmed that the pendant carried encrypted memory patterns. Long-term emotional data stored in light code only activated in the presence of the original owner. It had been waiting for Lena, just like everyone else. But the revelation was not just emotional, it was dangerous. The data inside the pendant also included a name, the name of the guardian who had saved Lena, and a warning. Rourke read it aloud, voice tight. If this message is unlocked, then someone may try to finish what they started. The queen's expression turned cold. There are those who never wanted my daughter to return, she said. They will come now. At that moment, alarms echoed through the palace. The lights flickered red, and security bots rolled to position. A guard rushed into the chamber. "Breathless, Your Majesty," he said. "There's been a breach." A ship landed in the restricted zone, no ID, no signal. The Queen stood tall, all traces of sorrow gone from her voice. "Protect my daughter," she commanded. "Bring her to the royal safe room." Rourke grabbed Lena's hand and nodded. "I'll get her there," he promised. As they ran through the glowing halls, Lena looked back once at the pendant in the AI room, now dark and silent again. Its message complete, but its warning had just begun. And deep within the shadows of the palace, someone else had seen the hologram, someone who wanted to erase that light forever. Asterisk, the blood trials begin the next morning. The city of Virulin woke to tension in the air. Guards stood on every wall. Scanners watched the skies. And the royal banners hung heavier than usual. But deep inside the palace, a different kind of pressure was building. Lena sat in a circular chamber, dressed in ceremonial white robes. Rourke stood behind her, silent, protective, but even he couldn't stop what was about to happen. Across from her sat the Queen, wearing royal armor instead of soft robes. "Do you know what the blood trials are?" the Queen asked gently. Lena nodded, her fingers curled tightly in her lap. "They test more than blood," she whispered. "They test worth." The Queen gave a slow nod. "Our laws demand that only a true heir may pass the trials," she said. "No one else has ever succeeded. 3 trials would begin today: mind, body, and soul, each one ancient, dangerous, and judged not by machines or votes, but by living relics of the royal bloodline. And if Lena failed, even by one step, she could never be named princess." Outside, the people waited near the public screens, hoping to catch a glimpse of the girl who might be their lost star. Some cheered, some doubted, and some whispered threats in dark corners. The first trial began at sunrise. Inside the Hall of Memory, a high-ceiling chamber with glass walls that shimmered like water. Lena stepped in alone, the doors closing behind her. Inside, her mind was no longer her own. The hall created illusions, moments from her past. But twisted, she saw herself as a child again, trapped in fire, reaching out, but this time, no one came. Her knees buckled, but she stood. She saw Rourke turning his back, saw the Queen's face fading into shadows. The voices whispered, "You don't belong. You were never meant to be." Lena closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and whispered, "I am still here." The voices faded. The illusion cracked, and light poured into the hall. A floating stone in the center glowed green. She had passed the trial of mind. Outside, Rourke smiled, watching the screen with folded arms. "She's stronger than they think," he muttered. But inside the palace, not everyone was pleased. A tall alien noble named Lord Varn growled under his breath. "She should not have passed that," he said. "She's only half-blood." Another advisor leaned in, whispering, "We still have 2 more trials." The second trial began in the courtyard of the Blades. Here, warriors of the royal line had trained for centuries. Lena was given a staff, light but sharp. Her opponent, a royal guard, selected by tradition, strong, silent, and skilled. The rules were simple: survive 3 minutes without falling. Not win, not strike, just stand, just endure. The match began, and the guard moved fast, spinning the blade like a storm. Lena ducked, blocked, rolled, her breath sharp and fast. The crowd watched in silence, unsure if they should cheer or hold their breath. She stumbled once, cut her arm, fell to one knee. The guard raised his blade for a finishing blow, but Lena caught it with her staff, pushed upward, and stood again. Her feet were shaking, her arms weak, but she didn't fall when the gong sounded. The guard stepped back and saluted. She had passed the trial of body. The Queen watched from the balcony. her hands tight around the rail. "She's more than I hoped," she whispered. "More than I deserve." But Lord Varn was already planning his next move. He stepped away from the viewing area, activating a small cum crystal. "If she passes the last trial," he said, "start the plan." The final trial took place at dusk, in the Garden of Echoes. Here, no weapon could help, and no mind could hide. The trial was simple. One question, one answer, the ancient voice of the garden would ask something only the true heir could answer with her heart. Lena walked into the garden as the sun dipped below the towers. Flowers bloomed around her, glowing in the dark. A soft wind whispered through the trees. Then, a voice echoed through the air. "Who are you?" She froze, not because the question was hard, but because it wasn't. She had spent her life asking that same thing on every cold night. Every silent moment, she thought of the fire. The dream of a cradle, Rourke's hand holding hers. The queen's face full of silent hope. She took a breath and answered, "I am the girl who lived," she said. "I am not whole. Not perfect, but I am me. I am Lena." The garden lit up around her, a soft blue light rising from the ground. The petals opened, the air shimmered, and a small crystal floated up in front of her. She reached out and touched it, and the garden whispered, "You are worthy," back at the palace. Rourke stood beside the queen as the result was announced. She had passed all 3 trials. The queen looked to the stars, blinking away tears. "She is mine," she said, her voice trembling. But just as the people began to cheer, an explosion rocked the outer wall. The sky filled with smoke, and enemy ships appeared on the horizon. Someone had waited for this moment, and now they were ready to strike. The assassin's truth smoke filled the sky above the royal palace. Sirens wailed, guards shouted, and the people of Virulin ran for cover. An explosion had torn through the outer wall just minutes after Lena completed the blood trials. Captain Rourke grabbed Lena's arm and pulled her behind a pillar. His eyes scanned the sky, watching as small enemy crafts dropped figures onto the palace rooftops. "This wasn't random," he muttered. They waited until she passed. The queen had already been rushed to her private chamber by elite guards. But Rourke refused to leave Lena's side. "She's the one they're after," he told the soldiers. "She stays with me in the middle of the chaos." One figure moved differently, not like a soldier, not with force but with silence. He slipped through corridors, wearing black armor, blending with shadows. His blade was thin, sharp, and coated with a paralyzing agent. His mission was clear: reach the girl, end the bloodline, disappear. Lena, catching her breath behind the throne hall, looked up at Rourke. "Why would anyone try to kill me now?" she whispered. "I passed the trials. Isn't that what they wanted?" Rourke frowned, his mind working fast. "Someone wanted you to fail," he said, "and now that you didn't, they're scared." Just then, the assassin struck. He came from above, dropping from the ceiling with no sound. His blade aimed straight for Lena's heart. But Rourke moved faster, throwing his body in front of her. The blade cut across his arm instead, and he crashed into the wall. Lena screamed. Grabbing a loose metal rod from the floor, the assassin turned his weapon toward her cold eyes, staring through his mask. But before he could strike again, a flash of energy hit him from the side. Guards arrived just in time, firing stun pulses, forcing the attacker to collapse. They chained him with energy cuffs and dragged him to the dungeon. Lena ran to Rourke, her hands shaking as she pressed against his wound. "I'm fine," he said with a tight smile. Blade barely touched bone, but his voice was pale. And Lena knew he was only pretending to be strong. "Don't move," she whispered. "I'll get help." Meanwhile, down in the royal prison chamber, the assassin sat in silence until the queen entered the room, her face cold and unreadable. Behind her stood Lord Varn, arms crossed, watching everything. "You tried to kill my daughter," the queen said, her voice like steel. "Why?" The assassin smiled behind his cracked helmet. "Because your daughter isn't the only one." He replied, "There's another one raised in secret. Already trained, already ready." Lord Verne stepped forward quickly. "Too quickly lies," he snapped. "He's trying to confuse you." But the queen narrowed her eyes. "Let him speak." The assassin leaned forward, his voice low and cruel. "The real heir was taken years ago. Yes, but she wasn't alone. The rebels cloned her," he said. "One child went missing, another was raised in the shadows, and now the other girl waits to take her place." The queen's heart pounded. "Another girl? A clone. Where is she?" the queen asked. The assassin grinned, but said nothing more. Then, without warning, he bit down on something hidden in his mouth. His body jerked once, then went still. A poison capsule. He was gone. The chamber fell silent until the queen turned sharply toward Lord Varn. "You knew," she said. Varn's eyes widened, but just for a second. "I suspected," he admitted, "but I wanted what's best for the Empire." "You mean control," the queen said coldly. "You would have let that girl take my daughters. Place better her than a half-blood raised by a human." Varn snapped, losing control. "She's weak, soft, too emotional, she'll ruin us." But the queen's voice turned fierce. "She passed the trials," she said, "all three. She stood when others would have fallen." At that moment, a guard entered. "Eyes wide, Your Majesty." "The other girl has arrived," he said. "She's asking for an audience." The queen looked toward the hall, then back at Lord Varn. "Let her in," she said. Minutes later, a girl entered the throne room, tall, perfect posture, wearing the royal crest. Her eyes were sharp, her voice smooth. "I am Princess Lena," she said. The rightful heir gasps filled the chamber. Rourke, bandaged and pale, stepped in behind Lena, the real one, his eyes locking with the newcomer. The two girls stared at each other, like reflections in a twisted mirror. "She's me," Lena whispered, "but I'm me too." And now, the whole palace held its breath, because there were two princesses and only one throne. The storm over the palace. Two girls stood in the royal hall. Both claimed to be Princess Lena. Both held their heads high. Both had eyes filled with memories, but only one could be real. And the other, a shadow, a plan made in darkness. The queen looked from one to the other. Her voice caught in her throat. Her heart told her the answer. But the laws demanded truth, not feeling. "I have lived my whole life waiting for this day," the new girl said. Her voice was calm, smooth, rehearsed. "I was raised by those loyal to the old crown, trained in silence, protected until the moment was right." Rourke narrowed his eyes, standing beside his Lena. "And who protected you?" he asked, his voice quiet but sharp. "Assassins? Traitors. The same ones who just attacked the palace." The fake Lena didn't blink. "Your concern is noted," she replied coldly. "But I am not here for games. I am here to claim my place." The queen raised a hand, silencing them both. "No more words," she said. "The people must see. The council will gather at dawn, and a final test will decide who holds the crown." That night, the palace was locked down. The guards doubled, the skies watched by drones. Inside, whispers filled the halls. Two heirs, one throne, but in the shadows beyond the city, a greater storm was rising. Lord Verne had disappeared from the palace, and outside Virulin, dozens of ships were gathering in orbit, silent, unmarked, and full of weapons. Varn stood aboard the lead ship, facing a hollow screen of masked leaders. "We act at first light," he said. "The people will be confused, and in the chaos, the fake heir will rise if the queen resists." He paused. "Remove her." Back in the palace, the real Lena sat in the queen's chamber, silent, tired, but not broken. The queen sat beside her, holding the pendant again. "This should have been a happy day," she said, "but power always draws shadows." Lena looked down, then asked softly, "Do you believe I'm really her?" The queen didn't answer right away. Instead, she took Lena's hand and placed it over her heart. "I don't need proof," she whispered. "You are the only one who ever made this beat again." Meanwhile, Rourke paced outside, unable to rest. He had seen enough wars to feel when one was about to start, and this felt like the calm before something terrible. Suddenly, alarms sounded. Not inside the palace, but from the city walls, dozens of ships were now visible in the night sky. Dropping troops toward the city, panic broke out. The people screamed. Guards raced to defensive positions. The queen stepped onto her balcony, her voice amplified by ancient crystal. "We are under attack," she declared. "Stand strong, stand united." But it was too late. Varn's ships had already begun firing. The outer districts exploded in flame. Towers crumbled. An enemy. Soldiers poured through the streets. Inside the palace, the fake Lena stood alone. She touched a crystal on her wrist, and a voice answered, "We're in position." It said. She nodded. "Then begin." Betrayal spread fast. Some palace guards turned on their own. Doors were blasted open, halls filled with smoke. It was a full invasion masked as a political test. Rourke grabbed Lena's hand and pulled her toward the queen's escape path. "We don't win by fighting here," he said. "We survive first." But Lena stopped, her eyes blazing. "I won't run," she said. "Not again." She activated the pendant. It pulsed bright, then brighter. Suddenly, an old AI voice spoke through the hall. "Emergency command, Royal Beacon online." The beacon rose above the palace tower, sending a signal to every corner of the world. The message was clear. "The true heir lives. The city is under attack. Defend the crown." Across the planet, old royal defenders activated. Hidden ships, silent bunkers, ancient oaths came alive. Virelin wasn't alone anymore, back in the palace. The queen and Rourke fought their way to the throne hall, and there they found Lena standing before her fake twin, who now held a blade. "No more pretending." The fake Lena hissed. "This crown is mine." Lena didn't flinch. "You can wear the crest," she said. "You can copy my voice, my walk, but you'll never carry the memories. You'll never know what it felt like to be saved from a burning pod or held by a man who gave up everything for me." The room lit up suddenly. Reinforcements arrived. Loyal to the true queen, the fake Lena looked around, realizing her side had lost. Still, she lunged forward, one final strike. But Rourke stepped in, knocking the blade aside, and Lena knocked her double to the floor, tears in her eyes. "You could have been anything," she whispered, "but you chose to be a shadow." The queen stepped forward, guards surrounding them. "It ends here," she said. Outside, the city fought back, and above them, the storm began to break. The daughter comes home. The fires around Virelin began to fade as the sun rose. Smoke drifted through the streets. The sky was soft pink and gold. The battle was over. The enemy had fallen, and silence slowly returned. But inside the royal palace, hearts were still racing. Lena stood in the grand hall, covered in dust and bruises. Her double had been taken away, her blade broken, her lies exposed. Now the people waited for a final answer. Who was the true heir? Who would the queen name as daughter and future ruler? The queen stepped onto the palace balcony, her royal robes torn but her back straight. She held up the glowing pendant in one hand, and in the other Lena's hand. Below, thousands of citizens stood quietly, waiting for her words. "This girl." The queen began, her voice clear and strong. "This girl faced fire, fear, and falsehood. She passed the ancient trials. She showed the strength of her mind." The queen continued, "The courage of her body, and the purity of her soul. She is not a copy, the queen said, turning toward Lena. She is my daughter. The crowd exploded with cheers. Trumpets played the royal anthem, and blue lights lit the city towers. For the first time in 20 years, the crown had an heir. Lena stepped forward to speak, her voice trembling slightly. I never dreamed of this day, she said. I didn't know where I came from. But I always felt I belonged to something bigger. She looked toward Rourke, who stood proudly at the edge of the balcony. And I want to thank the man who found me, raised me, protected me. If not for him, I would not be here. The queen stepped beside Rourke and placed a hand on his shoulder. Captain Rourke, she said, you will forever be part of this family. You gave me back what I thought was lost forever. He bowed slightly, hiding the emotion in his eyes. It was never about blood, he said softly. It was always about love. Later that day, a quiet ceremony was held in the palace garden. The old crown, once locked away in memory, was placed on Lena's head. She did not feel powerful, she felt responsible. As the royal robe was placed around her shoulders, she whispered to herself, now I must become someone worthy. Meanwhile, across the kingdom, citizens rebuilt homes, hugged families, and spoke her name with hope. Children drew her symbol in chalk on the walls. Old veterans saluted toward the palace. And deep in the mountains, hidden outposts lit signal fires. The true heir lives. In the days that followed, peace returned. The fake Lena was sent to trial, and her true past was revealed. She was a clone created by rebels, raised in secret, to steal the throne. But even she had doubts near the end. She got love. She had whispered before the guards took her away. All I ever had were commands. The queen visited her once. Just once, and as she left, she said, you could have been my daughter's sister. Weeks passed, and Virulin bloomed again. Lena walked the city in simple clothes, meeting citizens, helping children, listening to stories. People loved her, not because of her title, but because of her heart. One evening, she returned to the old chamber where she had met her mother for the first time. She stood there alone, holding the pendant, now dull and quiet. But she smiled. It's okay, she whispered. Your job is done. Then, she turned and found Rourke standing in the doorway. His arm was healed, and his jacket was clean, but his eyes still held the weight of the journey. You ready to go? He asked. Go where? She smiled. To see the stars, he replied. You've got a whole galaxy to meet. She laughed softly, and together they walked down the palace steps. The queen watched them from above, tears shining in her eyes again, not from pain this time, but from pride. As they boarded a royal scout ship, Lena looked back one last time. She wasn't leaving her home behind, she was carrying it with her. Because the girl who was once lost in the wreckage had become a symbol of healing. She had faced the trials, defeated the lies, and united a kingdom. And now, she was more than a princess. She was hope. She was home.